They told you to work hard, so you'd never notice who's in control. What if everything you've ever been told about hard work was just a well-wrapped lie? Since the moment I could hold a pencil or lift a tool, I was fed the same story: grind hard, hustle harder, sweat daily. And if I pushed long enough, hard enough, I'd rise. I'd earn my reward. I'd earn respect. But here's the thing, I looked around. And the people breaking their backs? They're hardly ever the ones calling the shots. They're the ones bent over, while someone else is playing chess with their future. They're baking under the sun while a man in the shade signs the checks. We were taught to glorify hard work like it's some kind of sacred virtue. But it's not virtue. It's a leash. The real danger of hard work isn't that it fails, it's that it makes you obedient. Those who push the hardest are often the easiest to use. They march in straight lines, predictable and visible. They're worn out, and because of that, they pose no threat. No one's afraid of the man who's always exhausted. We don't keep our eyes on the guy bragging about his hustle. We ignore him. Because he's not playing the real game. Machiavelli once warned us, appearances deceive, and those who seem the most righteous are often the most calculating. But what if the biggest con today isn't a person, but a belief? What if it's this entire religion of effort? Back in Renaissance Florence, the most powerful men weren't sweating in the fields or dying on battlefields. They weren't hammering iron or dying for a cause. They were sitting in the shadows, mastering one principle that still holds today. Power doesn't come from labor. It comes from leverage. A prince doesn't rule because he works harder than the farmer. He rules because he sees more, speaks less, and thinks faster. Strategy doesn't shout like labor. It whispers, and that's why poets never wrote sonnets about it. And that silence has a cost. Because while we worship the worker, the elite are busy creating the system that keeps the worker in place. So let me ask you, who wins in a society that worships exhaustion? Who benefits when you're too tired to question things, too loyal to challenge the system, too buried in your suffering to notice it's not even your fight? They told us to be proud of the grind. But pride isn't power. And being tired isn't virtue. A man who never stops moving doesn't realize he's walking in circles. Hard work becomes a treadmill dressed up like a staircase. It feels like progress. But really, it just keeps you in place. Visible. Useful. Easy to control. And here's where it turns dark, because the moment you start mistaking being useful for being powerful, you've already lost. A lion isn't king because he hunts every day. He's king because he knows exactly when to hunt. His silence commands more than another's rage. His stillness terrifies. The hard worker charges headfirst into problems. The strategist? He waits. He moves once, at the perfect time, and ends it with a single strike. And yet we hand out awards for burnout. We act like exhaustion is something to brag about. We call sleep a weakness. We treat rest like a luxury. We see silence as a flaw. But you have to stop and ask, who planted that idea in your mind? Who wins when you never stop moving, when you constantly produce but never lead? Hard work, unchecked, is a trap. It poses as discipline, but often it's just avoidance. It keeps you from thinking, from planning, from acting with intent. It keeps you too busy to realize you're stuck. There's a reason kings had advisors, not calluses. A reason the most feared men weren't the loudest ones in the room. They were the ones no one saw coming. The ones who didn't move 10,000 times, they moved once. The ones who let others run in circles while they sharpened stillness into a weapon. So when someone tells you to just work harder, know this, that's not advice. That's a command they give to people they don't fear. Because the moment you start thinking instead of just doing, suddenly you're no longer their pawn. You're a threat. There's a sickness spreading among the ambitious. A lie disguised as wisdom. It says effort equals worth. That the one who suffers most deserves the throne. That pain somehow makes you real. But pain, without purpose, is just a tax you pay for not having a plan. This world is full of men who think being tired means being valuable. They wear exhaustion like armor, convinced that outworking everyone is their ticket to the top. But thrones aren't handed out for effort. They're taken with vision, manipulation, and precision timing. The man who works 10 times harder usually ends up serving the one who thinks 10 times sharper. Picture the gladiator. Covered in sweat, bloodied, giving everything he has. The crowd roars. He fights to the death. But who has the real power in that arena? Not the man swinging the sword. The emperor. The man who decides with a flick of the wrist who lives and who dies. He rewrites fate, not with effort, but with leverage. Hard work without strategy is gladiator blood, brave, respected, but replaceable. Yet society trains you to believe that being noble means suffering, that you earn your worth through endless sacrifice, that rest is weakness and stillness is sin. But listen carefully, true power doesn't move fast. It moves right. The most powerful men aren't the busiest. They're the most precise. They don't run harder, they remove friction. They don't play harder, they change the rules. A Machiavellian mind doesn't ask, "How can I do more?" It asks, "How can I make it look like I've done more, without lifting a finger?" That's the difference between the guy climbing the ladder and the one who built it and sold it to him. The worker waits to be chosen. The strategist removes the illusion of choice. So why do they keep telling us to worship effort? Why are we fed this image of the tireless, selfless man? Because he's no threat. The man who's always grinding has no time to study the rules of the game. No time to ask real questions. No energy left to challenge anything. He becomes a cog. Respectable, maybe, but still a cog. And cogs can be swapped. But you weren't built to be reliable. You were built to be sharp. Unpredictable. Dangerous. You weren't made to serve. You were made to observe. To wait. To strike once, and never need to do it again. That's not laziness. That's mastery. A single precise strike can do more than 1,000 wild swings in the dark. But schools don't teach this. Workplaces punish it. Even parents fear it. Because real power can't be boxed. Can't be measured. Can't be timed. It lives in mystery. In silence. The emperor's robe stays clean not by accident, but by intention. By design. You have to choose. Be admired for your effort, or feared for your mind. But never both. Because the man who chases admiration will always serve the one who values control. The world doesn't remember who worked the hardest in the room. It remembers who changed the room. And you can't change what you're enslaved to. So take a step back. Look around. And stop asking yourself how much more you can endure. Ask instead, what game am I playing? Because while you're out here proving your effort, someone else is quietly deciding your ceiling. There comes a moment in every man's life when he realizes he's not tired because he's weak. He's tired because he's been aiming at the wrong damn target. It's not the weight of the work that breaks you. It's the betrayal of realizing it was never meant to set you free. They taught you to climb the ladder, but no one told you it was leaning against the wrong wall. They told you to move faster, but never asked where you were going. They said discipline was about endurance, but never told you it could also mean restraint. Real discipline isn't about more. It's about knowing when to stop. The strategist doesn't chase every opportunity. He picks a few. Ignores the noise. Sharpens his blade in silence. He doesn't need praise. Doesn't ask for credit. He just waits, and then moves when it matters. This is the power of strategic withholding. Because the man who's always visible, always loud, always in motion, he's the easiest to predict. And in this world, predictability is weakness. You were taught to show your progress. But progress shown too early? That's a map for your enemies. You were told to speak your goals out loud. But a spoken goal becomes a target. And every target invites resistance. You were taught that transparency was a strength. But often, it's just exposure. A clear invitation to be manipulated. A man who seeks power doesn't reveal all. He reveals only what he wants seen, just enough to shape perception. Molière once wrote that the wise man does at once what the fool does at last. But let me add this. The wise man often says nothing at all, and lets the world wonder what he knows. Mystery isn't decoration. It's a weapon. Learn to be unreadable. Because the man who can't be read can't be controlled. Stillness is the weapon, and silence is the strategy. I hold power not because I raise my voice, but because I don't have to. I don't create fear by stepping forward. I create confusion by standing still. I draw people in, then give them nothing. And that silence? That refusal to explain myself? It echoes louder than any speech could. It's not charisma that makes kings. It's control. It's restraint. Watch what happens when a man enters a room and says nothing. You'll see people shift. You'll feel the atmosphere tighten. Because silence doesn't calm, it questions. It builds pressure where noise used to be. It becomes presence. Hard workers speak to prove they belong. Strategists speak when their silence has already unsettled the room. And in an age obsessed with showing off, oversharing, overselling, nothing is more dangerous than the man who doesn't explain a damn thing. I work, yes. But not to be seen. Not to be liked. I work for position. And position is power, not because it puts you on display, but because it lets you watch everything while revealing nothing. Think about chess. The most dangerous piece isn't the one moving nonstop, it's the one you forgot was there. The one that hasn't moved yet. Still. Waiting. Ready. So when you think about hard work, ask yourself, what's the result? Are you gaining control? Or just feeding a machine that needs your exhaustion to stay alive? Because in every empire, there are thousands of workers, but only one architect. The workers build the palace. The architect owns the blueprint. And when it all collapses, nobody remembers the one who bled. They remember the one who planned. There's a reason history's most dangerous men left so few words behind. And the ones they did leave? Sharpened like knives. Because real power isn't found in noise. It rises in silence. We've been conditioned to believe every day is an audition. That every effort must be posted, documented, timestamped. But kings don't audition. Generals don't beg for attention. Real power doesn't explain itself. And yet the worker is told that visibility is the path to success. That if he just keeps showing up, earlier, louder, longer, he'll get what he deserves. But here's the truth, if you're always available, you're always replaceable. If you're always talking, they'll learn how to read you. And if they can read you, they can control you. Machiavelli understood this. The best leaders keep their intentions hidden, not because they have none, but because they refuse to show their hand too soon. The loud man is easy to target. The silent one becomes a mirror, strike at him, and you're just swinging at your own reflection. Let that sink in. The most powerful man is usually the most misunderstood. And that's where your edge lives. Stop trying to convince the world of your potential. Stop narrating your every move. Stop offering explanations like free samples. Your enemies don't need a guided tour, let them stay confused. Let them guess. Let them get it wrong. Because being underestimated is the camouflage of kings. The world doesn't worship effort. It worships mystery. And mystery isn't a gift, it's a choice. Reveal everything, and you give away the game. Speak too much, and you become background noise. And noise loses weight. A lion doesn't roar just to prove he's a lion. He roars once. And the forest remembers. The rest of the time? He's watching. Still. Waiting. Can you do that? Can you go a week without posting? A month without announcing your next move? Can you train in silence, build in silence, grow in silence, then appear fully formed, undeniable, untouchable? Or are you addicted to being seen? Because that addiction, that need for visibility, is modern slavery. It keeps you chasing likes, approval, feedback. And a man stuck in that loop can be steered. He can be led. You can't be free if you need to be noticed. You can't dominate if you're still begging for credit. You'll never build an empire if your identity is tied to the grind that keeps others comfortable. This game isn't about proving your worth. It's about becoming unavoidable. And that has nothing to do with effort, and everything to do with scarcity. Because hard work is everywhere. Everyone's doing it. Billions live in it. But how many people can stay silent until they strike? Very few. Be one of them. Because in the end, it's not the man with the callous hands who decides the future. It's the one who knows when to vanish, and when to come back with thunder. There comes a moment when the man chasing applause finally realizes, those claps don't protect him. They don't pay him. And they sure as hell don't promote him. They're just a leash. Dressed up as admiration. Because once your actions depend on applause, you're not acting anymore. You're performing. And performers don't win wars, they entertain the ones who do. You've been sold a myth. Hard work has been weaponized against you. Romanticized. Glorified. Painted as noble. But nobility without power is just the story they tell at your funeral. You weren't born to be remembered kindly by those who used you. You were born to win. And to win, you need something far rarer than effort. You need control. Control over time. Over perception. Over outcomes. That doesn't go to the loudest man, it goes to the one who moves with precision. The one who takes a single step while others run in place. The one who knows effort is visible. But leverage? Leverage is invisible. The true rulers don't sweat. They profit off yours. They move pieces, shape attention, bend reality, without lifting a finger. You're told to admire the man who never stops moving. But if Machiavelli were alive today, he'd tell you to watch the man who waits. The one who chooses his moments. Who leaves no trace. That's power. Not noise. Not chaos. Not busyness. But controlled, intentional motion. Look at the battlefield. The general doesn't fight. He doesn't swing the sword. He sees the whole map. He waits for the right moment. Because force must be accurate, or it's wasted. One wrong move, one premature attack, and everything falls apart. The soldier may be brave, but wars are won by the one who sees the silence before the storm. That's where most men fail. They believe that if they just keep working harder, someone will notice. Someone will reward them. Someone will give them the crown. But crowns aren't handed out. They're taken. By men who understand leverage. Who don't wait to be chosen, because they rigged the game before it began. Ask yourself, why do the wealthiest, most powerful men value stillness? Why do they disappear early, cut people off, sit in silence for hours? Because they understand what few ever will, the value of uncluttered attention. While others are drowning in distractions, they're building systems that command obedience, not admiration. You were told rest means falling behind. But that's what pawns believe. Kings don't rush. They don't panic. They don't multitask. They wait. Until every piece is in motion. And then they move once, and win. This obsession with being busy? It's blinding you to your own position. It's robbing you of clarity. And your addiction to motion is the reason you're stuck. Power isn't about doing more. It's about doing less with more consequence. Fewer moves. Stronger moves. And silence. Silence so loud it makes others speak just to fill the void you leave behind. That's when you've entered a new arena. One where hard work ends, and power begins. So now you understand, working hard isn't wrong. It's just not enough. It's the beginning, not the goal. Staying stuck there? That's the trap. Because the world doesn't reward effort. It rewards impact. It doesn't crown the man who tries the most. It crowns the man who changes the game, with the least motion possible. The crowd cheers for the fighter who bleeds. But the kingdom belongs to the one who never had to fight at all. If that makes you uncomfortable, good. That discomfort is the crack in the illusion. That's your signal. Because deep down, you already knew. You felt it. Something about the grind never sat right. The applause felt empty. The exhaustion never brought peace. You just didn't have the words for it. Now you do. Hard work without direction. That's servitude. Hard work without detachment? That's addiction. Hard work without leverage? That's slavery, with a smile. If you want to rise, you need to disappear from the pattern that traps everyone else. Step back. Observe. And when you move, move once, cleanly, like the hand of God across a chessboard. Because once you've tasted what it feels like to win without being seen, you'll never chase recognition again. You won't want to be admired. You'll want to be remembered. And that difference, that dangerous, quiet difference, is what separates the empire builder from the bricklayer. So now ask yourself, are you still chasing the pride of labor? Or are you ready to step into the ruthless stillness of the strategist? Are you still performing for claps, or ready to become unreadable, untouchable, uncontrolled? Because the man who can't be touched can't be ruled. And the man who can't be ruled becomes legend. If you've made it this far, it's because you're done pretending. You're ready to vanish from the noise, and return as the storm they never saw coming. Now let me hear it, type it out loud. I choose leverage over labor. Let's see who's ready to rise, without permission. And don't stop here, the next video sharpens the next weapon. Watch it. You'll see why.